Sofia Martinez wiped the sweat from her brow as she balanced 3 plates of steaming pasta along her left arm. The downtown bistro was packed tonight and her feet ached from the double shift she was halfway through. 8 hours down, 4 more to go. The smell of garlic and fresh bread filled the air as she weaved between tables with practiced grace. "Order up for table 7, she called to her co-worker, a college kid who had started last week and still mixed up the table numbers. Sofia had been working at Bella Notte for 3 years now. Not because she loved it, though she did enjoy the regular customers and the family atmosphere among the staff, but because the flexible schedule and decent tips helped keep a roof over her head while she saved for what really mattered, art school, the dream that kept getting pushed further away with each passing month. The folder of application materials sat on her small desk at home, half-completed forms waiting for attention she never seemed to have time to give. And money she never seemed to have enough of. "Sofia, can I see you in the back for a minute?" Mr. Rossi, the owner, waved her toward the kitchen. His bushy eyebrows were raised higher than usual, which could mean anything from a complaint to a surprise bonus. With Mr. Rossi, you never knew. She quickly dropped off the check for table 12 and made her way to the back, untying and retying her apron out of habit. "I just got a call from the Hamilton Hotel," Mr. Rossi said, his Italian accent thickening with excitement. "Their annual charity gala is tomorrow night and they're short-staffed. Asked if I could spare any experienced servers." The Hamilton Hotel was the fanciest place in the city. 5 stars, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, the kind of place where the wealthy went to see and be seen. "And you thought of me?" Sofia asked, surprised. Mr. Rossi's expression turned slightly hesitant. "Well, I thought of Lisa first, but she can't make it. You're my second choice. Don't look at me like that. You're good, very good, but sometimes you're, how do I say it? In your own world? These are important people, big tippers, but they notice everything." Sofia felt a small sting at being second choice, but pushed it aside. This was an opportunity, not a time for hurt feelings. "I won't let you down," she promised. "What time should I be there?" 6 o'clock sharp. Wear all black, pressed and clean. They'll provide the serving jacket." He handed her a card with details. "1 night of tips there is worth a week here. A week's worth of tips." Sofia's mind immediately went to the application fee for the art program, $780, that might as well have been $7,800 for how impossible it seemed to save. This gala could change everything. "Thank you for thinking of me," she said, tucking the card into her pocket. "Even as a second choice." Mr. Rossi smiled and patted her shoulder. "Show them what you can do, and next time you'll be first choice." That night, Sofia could barely sleep. Her tiny apartment felt stuffier than usual, the street noise louder. She tossed and turned, imagining herself serving champagne to movie stars and business tycoons. Around 3 in the morning, she finally drifted off, only to be startled awake by her alarm at 9. She spent the morning ironing her black pants and shirt until not a wrinkle remained, then polished her only pair of nice shoes until she could see her reflection. Looking in the mirror, she practiced her professional smile, the one that was friendly but not too familiar. "Good evening, may I offer you some champagne?" She rehearsed, then shook her head. "Too stiff, champagne? Too casual. Would you care for a glass of champagne, sir?" "Better." As she practiced, she felt a familiar tingling in her fingertips. It started as a slight warmth, then spread to a gentle vibration. She stared at her hands and sighed. This strange sensation had been happening since she was a child. The doctors had found nothing wrong, and her mother had dismissed it as growing pains or nerves. But Sofia knew it was something else, something she couldn't explain and had learned to ignore. Usually it happened when she was stressed or excited or scared. Like now, a mix of all 3. "Not today," she whispered to her hands, shaking them out as if she could shake away the feeling. "Today I need to be normal." The tingling faded as it always did when she focused on making it stop. One less thing to worry about. She arrived at the Hamilton Hotel at 5:45, 15 minutes early. The building towered above her, its glass exterior reflecting the setting sun. Doormen in crisp uniforms nodded as she entered the massive lobby, her footsteps echoing on the marble floor. "Staff entrances around the back," one of them said, not unkindly but firmly. "Oh, right. Thank you," Sofia replied, embarrassed. Of course there would be a separate entrance. She didn't belong through the front doors. She found her way to the service area, where a dozen other servers were already gathered. Some looked like professionals who did this kind of work regularly. Others seemed as out of place as she felt. A woman with a clipboard approached. Name, Sofia Martinez, from Bella Nota Bistro. The woman checked her list and handed Sofia a serving jacket that looked exactly her size. You'll be on the west side of the ballroom. Section C, tables 21 through 25. There's a diagram in the prep room. Memorize your section before guests arrive. She moved on to the next person without waiting for a response. Sofia followed the others to a large prep room where trays, glasses, and serving equipment were being organized. A map on the wall showed the layout of the ballroom, and she quickly found her assigned area. 5 tables near one of the smaller bars. Not the center of the action, but not hidden away either. First time at the Hamilton? Asked a tall server with kind eyes who looked to be in his 50s. Sofia nodded. That obvious, huh? You have that deer-in-headlights look we all get the first time. He extended his hand. I'm Ray. Been doing these events for 20 years. Any advice? Sofia asked, grateful for the friendly face. Walk like you belong here, even if you don't feel like it. Rich folks can smell fear. He winked. And don't worry about the fancy names on the menu. Just repeat what the chef tells you. The next hour was a blur of instructions, do's and don'ts, and practiced movements. Which side to serve from. How to pour wine without dripping. The proper way to address guests. Sofia's head was spinning, but her body remembered the rhythm of service even if the setting was different. At precisely 7 o'clock, the first guests began to arrive. From her position near the service entrance, Sofia caught glimpses of designer dresses, tailored suits, and jewelry that probably cost more than her entire life savings. Remember, confidence, Ray whispered before heading to his section. Sofia took a deep breath and entered the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, casting a warm glow over everything. Floral arrangements taller than Sofia adorned each table, their sweet scent mixing with perfumes and colognes. A string quartet played softly in the corner. It was like stepping into another world. A world Sofia had only seen in movies. She made her way to her assigned section where guests were beginning to take their seats. Table 21 was already full. 2 older couples and a younger man who looked bored already. Good evening, Sofia said, her voice steadier than she expected. Welcome to the Hamilton's annual charity gala. May I offer you some champagne to start? As she spoke, she felt the tingling in her fingers return, stronger this time. The champagne bottle in her hand vibrated slightly, and for a terrifying moment she thought she might drop it. But she tightened her grip and poured 6 perfect glasses without spilling a drop. Thank you, dear, said one of the women, barely glancing up. The night progressed smoothly. Sofia moved between her tables with growing confidence, serving dishes with names she could barely pronounce. Seared foie gras, truffle risotto, pan-seared scallops with saffron sauce. Between courses, she caught snippets of conversations about vacation homes, investment portfolios, and private schools. Words like million and billion were tossed around casually, as if discussing the weather. At table 23, a woman with silver hair noticed Sofia's steady hands as she poured wine. You're new here, aren't you? She asked. Yes, ma'am. First time at the Hamilton. You have a natural grace. Are you a dancer? Sofia smiled, surprised by the personal question. No, ma'am. Just a waitress. Though I hope to be an artist someday. An artist? How lovely. What medium? Mixed media, mostly. I like combining painting with found objects to tell stories. The woman looked genuinely interested. But her husband interrupted with a question about someone named Wellington, and the moment passed. As the main course was being served, Sofia noticed a commotion near the center of the ballroom. A young woman in a sparkly blue dress was standing on a chair, while a man in a tuxedo knelt before her. A proposal. The room erupted in applause as she nodded yes, and he slipped a ring on her finger. That's the senator's daughter, whispered another server as they passed each other. And that's the son of Wellington Industries kneeling. Been in the works for months, apparently. Sofia watched as the happy couple was surrounded by well-wishers. The tingling in her hands intensified suddenly, spreading up her arms in a wave that made her gasp. She nearly dropped the tray she was carrying. Something felt wrong, different from the usual sensation. More urgent, almost like a warning. She looked up at the high ceiling, her eyes drawn to a massive decorative beam that ran across the center of the room. Had it always been hanging at that slight angle, or was it her imagination? The engaged couple was now leading everyone to the dance floor, directly beneath the beam. Champagne was being passed around. Toasts were being made, and all Sophia could focus on was the strange feeling that something was about to happen. Something she couldn't explain but somehow knew was coming. The tingling turned to a humming energy that filled her entire body, as if preparing for what would come next. Sophia couldn't take her eyes off the ceiling beam. The strange humming energy in her body grew stronger, making it hard to focus on her serving duties. She watched as the happy couple twirled on the dance floor, completely unaware of what hung above them. "Is everything okay?" Ray appeared beside her, a tray of empty glasses balanced on his palm. "That beam," Sophia pointed upward. "Does it look right to you?" Ray followed her gaze and squinted. "Hard to tell with all the decorations. Why?" Before Sophia could answer, a loud creak echoed through the ballroom. A few guests glanced up, but most continued their conversations, assuming it was just the old building settling. The music played on. The laughter continued, but Sophia knew. Something inside her, the same thing that made her fingers tingle and her arms hum with energy, knew what was about to happen. "We need to clear that area," she said, her voice suddenly firm. She handed her serving tray to Ray and moved toward the dance floor. "Sophia, wait," Ray called after her. "You can't just—" Another creak, louder this time. Then a sharp crack that cut through the music like a knife. Now everyone heard it. The string quartet stopped playing mid-note. Heads turned upward. The massive wooden and steel beam, easily 20 feet long and weighing hundreds of pounds, had split where it connected to the ceiling. It was hanging by what looked like a few remaining bolts and decorative supports, directly above the crowded dance floor. Someone screamed. The happy couple froze mid-dance, looking up in horror. Panic spread through the room as people realized what was happening. "Move," shouted a security guard, waving his arms. "Everyone clear the area!" But there were too many people. Too much confusion. Some rushed toward the exits while others stood frozen in shock. The newly engaged couple seemed paralyzed with fear, staring up at their doom. Sophia felt herself moving forward instead of back. It wasn't a conscious decision. Her body seemed to be acting on its own. The humming energy that had been building in her arms and hands now filled her entire being, so intense it almost hurt. "Get out of the way," she shouted, pushing past stunned guests. The final bolt gave way with a screech of metal. The beam began its deadly fall toward the crowd below. Time seemed to slow down for Sophia. She saw everything with crystal clarity, the terrified expressions on people's faces, the glittering chandelier lights reflecting off the falling beam, the senator's daughter clutching her new fiancé's arm. Sophia raised her hands above her head, not knowing why, just following an instinct deeper than thought. And as the beam plummeted downward, something impossible happened. The beam stopped. In midair. Suspended about 7 feet above the dance floor, directly above Sophia's outstretched hands. The room went silent. 300 people stared in disbelief. Sophia herself couldn't process what was happening. All she knew was that her body was channeling an incredible force. She could feel the weight of the beam pressing down on her, not physically touching her hands but connected to her somehow, as if by invisible steel cables. "Everyone move," she managed to say through gritted teeth. "I can't hold it long." Her voice broke the spell. People scrambled away from the dance floor, pulling the shocked couple with them. Security guards helped the elderly. Waitstaff guided guests toward the exits. Sophia's arms began to shake. Sweat poured down her face. The weight was becoming unbearable, like trying to hold up a truck with her bare hands. Whatever power had awakened inside her, it had limits. "Just a little longer," she whispered to herself. "Just until everyone's safe." From the corner of her eye, she saw Ray directing the last few frozen guests off the dance floor. The area was finally clear. Only Sophia remained, arms raised, holding back disaster through means she couldn't comprehend. With a gasping breath, she stepped back and let her arms drop. The beam crashed to the marble floor with a deafening boom, cracking the expensive stone and sending pieces flying. Sophia threw herself backward just in time to avoid being hit by the debris. Then silence, followed by a single person clapping. Then another, and another. Soon the entire ballroom erupted in applause. People were cheering, crying, hugging each other. Some were on their phones, already recording or live streaming what they'd just witnessed. Sophia sat on the floor, exhausted and confused. Her arms felt like jelly, and the humming energy was fading, leaving behind a bone-deep fatigue she'd never experienced before. Ray rushed to her side. "Are you hurt? What just happened? How did you—" "I don't know," Sophia said truthfully. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "I really don't know." Security guards approached cautiously as if afraid of her. Behind them came the hotel manager, his face a mix of concern and awe. "Miss, are you all right?" he asked, keeping a safe distance. Sophia nodded, though she wasn't sure if she was all right at all. What had just happened defied everything she understood about the world. About herself. "Someone call an ambulance," the manager ordered, then turned back to Sophia. "Don't try to move. Help is coming." "I don't need an ambulance," Sophia said, though her voice was weak. "I just need to sit for a minute." Despite her protests, hotel staff brought her water and a chair. People kept their distance, forming a circle around her and the fallen beam, whispering to each other and stealing glances her way. The silver-haired woman from table 23 broke through the circle and approached Sophia. Unlike the others, she showed no fear, only intense curiosity. "You saved my granddaughter's life," she said, gesturing to the young woman in the blue dress who had been proposed to, and many others. "How did you do it?" Sophia shook her head. "I wish I could explain. I just reacted." The woman studied Sophia's face carefully. Some things don't need explanations right away, but they deserve attention. She pressed a business card into Sophia's hand. "When you're ready to talk about what happened here, call me." Before Sophia could respond, paramedics arrived and insisted on checking her vitals. Her blood pressure was elevated, her pulse racing, but otherwise she appeared physically fine. They wanted to take her to the hospital for observation, but Sophia firmly refused. "Really? I just want to go home," she told them. The hotel manager, who had been conferring with security and what looked like the hotel's legal team, approached again. "Miss Martinez, isn't it? We'd like to ask you a few questions about what happened." Sophia's instincts told her to leave, and quickly. Whatever had happened tonight would bring attention she wasn't prepared for. She needed time to think, to process. "I'm sorry, but I'm not feeling well," she said, standing up shakily. "I need to go home. I can come back tomorrow to answer questions." The manager seemed about to object, but the silver-haired woman stepped in. "Let the poor girl rest, Richard. She's been through enough tonight. Your questions can wait until morning." Something about the woman's tone left no room for argument. The manager nodded reluctantly. "Of course, Mrs. Wellington, Miss Martinez. We'll arrange a car to take you home." Sophia thanked them and allowed herself to be led toward the service exit, away from the curious stares and whispered conversations. Ray caught up with her at the door. "What you did in there," he began, then shook his head. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you sure you're okay?" "I don't know what I am right now," Sophia admitted. "But I need to be alone to figure it out." Ray nodded. "Take care of yourself." "And Sophia?" "Thank you." My nephew was on that dance floor. Outside, a sleek black car waited. The driver didn't speak as he drove Sophia back to her apartment building, which looked even shabbier than usual after the luxury of the Hamilton Hotel. As she climbed the stairs to her third-floor unit, Sophia's phone began buzzing non-stop. Notifications poured in from social media accounts she rarely used. Text messages from coworkers at the bistro, missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Inside her apartment, she locked the door and leaned against it, sliding down until she sat on the floor. Only then did she check her phone. The first message was from Mr. Rossi. "Are you okay? Call me, everyone talking about what happened." The next was a link to a video on social media. With trembling fingers, Sophia tapped it open. There she was in shaky cell phone footage, standing beneath the falling beam with her arms raised. The video clearly showed the massive beam stopping in midair above her. The caption read, "Waitress uses telekinesis to save lives at Hamilton Hotel. Superhero Waitress dares Hamilton miracle." The video already had thousands of views and was climbing rapidly. Comments ranged from amazing special effects to "it's a publicity stunt" to "she's been chosen by God." Sophia turned off her phone and hugged her knees to her chest. The tingling had returned to her fingertips, though fainter now, like an echo of what had surged through her earlier. All her life she'd felt different. The strange sensations in her hands had been her secret, something she'd learned to hide and ignore. But now whatever was inside her had been revealed to the world in the most public way possible. There would be questions, tests, people wanting to study her or use her or worship her. Nothing would be the same again. Sophia glanced at the business card the silver-haired woman had given her. Eleanor Wellington, it read, with a phone number and nothing else. The grandmother of the bride-to-be, a woman who hadn't seemed surprised by what Sophia had done. Outside her window, Sophia could hear sirens in the distance. The city continued its nighttime rhythm, unaware that something had fundamentally changed. But in her small apartment, Sophia Martinez sat alone with the realization that the power she'd unleashed couldn't be put back into hiding. Whatever came next, she would have to face it. Sophia barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the beam suspended in midair and felt the strange energy flowing through her body. By morning, her phone had died from constant notifications, and she left it charging while she made a cup of coffee with shaking hands. The small TV in her kitchen became her window to the outside world. She flipped it on and nearly dropped her mug. Our top story this morning. An unexplained incident at last night's charity gala at the Hamilton Hotel has social media buzzing and experts baffled, said the news anchor, looking too excited for the early hour. Amateur video shows what appears to be a server stopping a falling support beam using what some are calling telekinetic powers. The hotel has issued a statement claiming it was a planned safety demonstration that went wrong. But eyewitnesses tell a different story. The screen showed the video that had been circulating online, Sophia with her arms raised, the beam hovering impossibly above her. Her face was clearly visible. The identity of the server remains unknown, but Sophia switched off the TV and sat heavily on her worn couch. Unknown? That wouldn't last long. Someone from the bistro would recognize her, or one of the other servers from last night. Her anonymity had an expiration date measured in hours, not days. A knock at her door made her jump. She approached cautiously and looked through the peephole. It was Mr. Rossi holding a newspaper and looking concerned. Sophia opened the door slightly, keeping the chain on. "Mr. Rossi, are you okay?" He interrupted, his accent thicker with worry. "I've been calling since last night." "What happened?" "I'm fine," Sophia said, though she felt anything but fine. "I just need some time." Mr. Rossi held up the newspaper. On the front page was a blurry still from the video. "This is you, yes?" "The whole city is talking about it. Some say it's fake, some say it's a miracle. What do you think?" Sophia asked quietly. Her boss studied her face for a long moment. "I think you should not open your door to anyone else today. Too many questions, too many cameras. Take the week off with pay. Figure things out." His kindness brought tears to her eyes. "Thank you. The bistro will be here when you're ready to come back," he said, then added with a small smile, "If you even want to come back. Maybe you have bigger things now." After he left, Sophia double-locked her door and pulled all the blinds closed. Her apartment felt both like a sanctuary and a prison. She needed to think, to plan, but her mind kept circling back to the same questions. What was happening to her? Why now? What should she do next? Around noon, her building's ancient intercom buzzed. Sophia ignored it. It buzzed again, more insistently. Finally, she pressed the talk button without speaking. "Miss Martinez, this is Eleanor Wellington. We met last night at the gala. I'd like to speak with you." Sophia froze. The silver-haired woman with the business card, the one who hadn't seemed surprised by what Sophia had done. "How did you find me?" Sophia asked. "I have resources," Mrs. Wellington replied simply. "May I come up?" "I believe I can help you," Sophia hesitated. This woman was a complete stranger, yet something about her calm confidence was reassuring. And right now, Sophia needed answers more than she needed safety. "5th floor, apartment 512, she said and buzzed her in. A few minutes later, Sophia opened her door to find not just Eleanor Wellington, but also a tall, lean man with salt and pepper hair who carried himself with military precision. "This is my associate, Dr. Chen," Mrs. Wellington explained. "He's a physicist who specializes in unusual phenomena. May we come in?" Sophia stepped back to let them enter her small apartment. She suddenly felt embarrassed by the cramped space, the second-hand furniture, the half-finished art project stacked in the corner. "Thank you for seeing us," Mrs. Wellington said, seeming completely at ease despite the humble surroundings. "I imagine you've had quite a morning." "That's one way to put it," Sophia replied. "How did you find where I live?" Dr. Chen spoke for the first time. "Your name tag last night, plus employment records from the bistro. It wasn't difficult. Which means others will find you soon, Mrs. Wellington added. That's why we needed to speak with you quickly. Sophia gestured for them to sit. You said you could help me. How? Mrs. Wellington smoothed her expensive slacks and leaned forward. By explaining what's happening to you, or at least by offering a theory based on similar cases we've documented. Similar cases? Sophia's heart raced. You mean there are others like me? Yes and no, Dr. Chen said. We've documented 17 individuals in the past 30 years who have demonstrated abilities that defy conventional physics. Each manifestation is unique, but the underlying principle appears consistent. Sophia tried to process this. And what principle is that? Mrs. Wellington reached into her handbag and removed an old photograph, yellowed with age. She handed it to Sophia. The photo showed a young woman in 1960s clothing standing beside a tractor that was tipped on its side. Her hands were outstretched toward the vehicle, and though the black and white image was grainy, Sophia could see a family resemblance. That's my grandmother, she said in shock. Rosa Martinez, Mrs. Wellington nodded. This was taken in 1968 in your family's village in Mexico. According to witnesses, your grandmother lifted this tractor to save a child trapped underneath. She used no tools, no machinery, just her hands. Sophia stared at the photo. My mother never mentioned this. She always said Grandma Rosa was just a farmer's wife. Many who discover these abilities keep them secret, Dr. Chen explained. Fear of being studied or worse, exploited. Your grandmother likely swore everyone to secrecy and never used her abilities again. Sophia thought about the tingling in her fingers that had been with her since childhood. A family inheritance she'd never known about. So this power, it runs in families? She asked. Sometimes, Mrs. Wellington said, but not always. We believe it has something to do with a rare genetic marker that allows certain individuals to manipulate energy fields that exist around us, but are undetectable to most humans. Sophia set down the photo. And you know this because I've been researching people like you for 40 years, Mrs. Wellington said. My foundation funds Dr. Chen's work. We identify individuals with extraordinary abilities and offer them protection and training. Protection from what? Sophia asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Dr. Chen's expression darkened. From those who would study you like a lab rat. From government agencies who would weaponize you. From religious zealots who would worship or condemn you. The world is not kind to those who break its understood rules. As if to emphasize his point, Sophia's phone pinged with a new message. She glanced at it to see a text from an unknown number. Are you the Hamilton Hotel miracle worker? CNN wants to interview you. It's starting already, she murmured. Which is why we're here, Mrs. Wellington said. We can help you disappear until you learn to control your abilities. We have a facility. You want to take me to a facility? Sophia interrupted, suddenly suspicious. Lock me away for my own good? Mrs. Wellington smiled gently. No, dear. We want to take you to a school. A place where you can meet others with gifts similar to yours, where you can learn what you're capable of in a safe environment. Sophia paced her small living room. This is too much. Yesterday I was just a waitress with art school dreams. Now you're telling me I'm some kind of, what, superhero? Mutant? We prefer extraordinarily abled individual, Dr. Chen said with the hint of a smile. But you're still Sophia Martinez. This power has always been part of you, dormant until it was truly needed. Sophia looked again at the photo of her grandmother. Had Rosa felt this same confusion, this same fear? Had she been offered help and refused it, choosing instead to bury her abilities and live a normal life? I need to think, Sophia said finally. This is a lot to process. Of course, Mrs. Wellington stood. But please don't wait too long. Once your identity becomes public knowledge, your options will narrow considerably. She handed Sophia another business card, this one with an address handwritten on the back. This is where you can find us when you're ready. We'll have someone watching your building to ensure your safety, but they won't interfere unless you're in danger. After they left, Sophia sat in silence for a long time, turning the business card over in her hands. The address was for a location about 3 hours outside the city. A knock at her door startled her again. This time when she checked the peephole, she saw a man with a camera and a woman holding a microphone. Press, Miss Martinez. We're from Channel 8 News. We'd like to ask you a few questions about last night at the Hamilton Hotel. Sophia backed away from the door silently. It had begun just as Mrs. Wellington had warned. Soon there would be more reporters. Scientists, religious figures, all wanting a piece of her, an explanation she couldn't give. She moved quickly, grabbing a backpack and stuffing it with essentials. Clothes, toiletries, her sketchbook, and the photo of her grandmother. The fire escape outside her bedroom window would let her avoid the reporters at her front door. As she was about to leave, an envelope slid under her door. Sophia hesitated, then picked it up. Inside was a single sheet of paper with an address, the same one Mrs. Wellington had given her, and a short message. "You are not alone. Others wait to meet you. Come when you're ready." Sophia tucked the note into her pocket and slipped out the window onto the fire escape. As she climbed down to the alley below, she felt the familiar tingling in her fingers, but it no longer frightened her. Whatever this power was, it had saved lives. It was part of her, just as her art was part of her. The busy city streets provided anonymity as she walked away from her apartment, away from her old life. Sophia Martinez, waitress and aspiring artist, had been revealed as something more. Now she needed to discover exactly what that meant. Behind her, more news vans were pulling up to her building. Ahead lay uncertainty, but also the promise of answers. Sophia adjusted her backpack and headed for the bus station, the address from the note memorized. It was time to find out who she really was. The bus ride out of the city gave Sophia 3 hours to think. She watched the urban landscape gradually give way to suburbs, then farmland and forests. Few passengers paid attention to the young woman with the backpack who stared out the window, lost in thought. Sophia checked her phone one last time before turning it off completely. Social media was exploding with theories about the Hamilton Hotel miracle. News outlets were offering rewards for information about her identity. Her inbox was flooded with messages from strangers. It was the text from Mr. Rossi that finally made her turn off the phone. "Reporters everywhere at Bistro. Police asking questions too. Hope you are safe. Call when you can." The bus dropped her at a small-town station where a single taxi waited. The driver barely glanced at her as she showed him the address. "That's the old Wellington estate," he said, putting the car in gear. "About 15 minutes from here." "You expected?" "I think so," Sophia replied, not wanting to say more. The taxi wound through country roads until it turned onto a long driveway lined with oak trees. At the end stood a sprawling stone mansion that looked like it belonged in another century. Gardens stretched in every direction, and in the distance, Sophia could see what looked like modern buildings, glass and steel structures that contrasted with the old house. The taxi stopped at a security gate where a guard stepped out of a small booth. "Name?" he asked politely. "Sophia Martinez. Mrs. Wellington is expecting me." The guard checked a tablet, then nodded. "Yes, you're on the list. Go right up to the main house." The taxi continued up the driveway and stopped in front of wide stone steps. Sophia paid the driver and stood looking up at the imposing building, suddenly unsure. Was she making a mistake? Walking into a place she knew nothing about based on the word of strangers? Before she could reconsider, the massive front door opened. Mrs. Wellington herself stood in the doorway, now dressed in casual but expensive-looking clothes. "Sophia," she said warmly, "I'm so glad you came. Please come in." The entrance hall was exactly what Sophia expected from such a grand house. Marble floors, antique furniture, paintings in ornate frames. What she didn't expect was the young man levitating 3 feet off the ground in the center of the room. He appeared to be about her age, with dark curly hair and an expression of intense concentration. As Sophia stared, he slowly descended until his feet touched the floor. "Sorry about that," he said with a grin.
"Still working on my control."
"I'm Diego." "Sophia," she replied automatically, still processing what she'd just seen. Mrs. Wellington smiled at her shocked expression. "Diego has been with us for about 6 months. His abilities manifest differently than yours, but the underlying principle is the same." Diego nodded. "Energy manipulation. You push things away. I lift myself up. Same source, different expression." "There are others here," Mrs. Wellington continued, leading Sophia deeper into the house, "each with their own unique gifts. Some stay for a short time to learn control. Others choose to remain longer to help with research or to train newcomers. They passed through a modern kitchen where a woman in her 30s was cooking without touching anything. Utensils moved on their own, stirring pots and flipping vegetables in a pan. "That's Lucia," Diego whispered. "She's been here longest. Can move small objects with incredible precision." Sophia felt a strange mix of fear and wonder. Just days ago, she'd thought she was alone in the world with her unexplainable sensations. Now she was in a house full of people who shared variations of the same gift. Mrs. Wellington led them to a glass-walled sunroom overlooking the gardens. Dr. Chen was there, along with 3 other people who all looked up when Sophia entered. Everyone. "This is Sophia Martinez, our newest arrival," Mrs. Wellington announced. "Sophia, this is our core research team. You've met Dr. Chen. This is Dr. Patel, our geneticist. Professor Wilson, our historian. And Thomas, our oldest living energy manipulator." Thomas looked to be in his 90s with deeply lined skin and bright, alert eyes. He studied Sophia with interest. "You're very strong," he said in an accented voice. "I saw the video. To stop something that size on your first manifestation, very impressive." "It wasn't exactly my first," Sophia said. "I've had sensations in my hands since I was a child. Tingling, humming, but nothing like what happened at the hotel." Dr. Patel nodded. "That's common. The ability often presents as minor sensory anomalies before a major manifestation event, usually triggered by stress or danger." "I have so many questions," Sophia said, taking a seat when Mrs. Wellington gestured to a chair. "As do we," Dr. Chen replied. "But perhaps you'd like to see the facility first? Understanding what we do here might answer some of your questions." The modern buildings Sophia had glimpsed from the driveway turned out to be research laboratories and training facilities. The group walked her through areas where people practice controlling their abilities in safe, monitored environments. In one room, a teenage boy was learning to create controlled heat in his palms. In another, an older woman was using her abilities to repair damaged plant cells, making a withered flower bloom again. "We currently have 14 residents with active abilities," Professor Wilson explained as they walked, "plus our research staff and security personnel, all carefully screened and sworn to secrecy. How do you keep this place hidden?" Sophia asked. "Especially with what happened at the hotel. Won't people be looking for places like this?"
The Wellington Foundation is publicly known as a scientific research organization focused on human potential, Mrs. Wellington explained.
"We do publish research, just not the full extent of our findings. The estate has been in my family for generations, and we value our privacy, which the locals respect." They entered a large, open space with reinforced walls and what looked like exercise equipment, though not like any gym Sophia had seen before. "This is where you'll train. If you choose to stay with us," Dr. Chen said. "We can help you understand the limits of your abilities and how to control them precisely." As if to demonstrate, he nodded to Diego, who had accompanied them on the tour. The young man stepped forward, raised his hands, and slowly lifted a 500-pound weight from its stand. Without touching it, the weight hovered, then gently returned to its place. 6 months ago, Diego could barely lift a book, Dr. Chen said. With practice, the neural pathways that control these abilities become stronger, more defined. Sophia felt the familiar tingling in her fingers. "Can I try?" "Of course," Dr. Chen gestured to a rack of smaller weights. "Start with something manageable. Focus on the energy you felt at the hotel, but try to direct it more precisely." Sophia stepped forward nervously. Everyone was watching her, and for a moment she felt like she was back at the gala with all eyes on her. She took a deep breath and focused on a 10-pound weight. The tingling intensified, spreading up her arms. She raised her hands, directing the sensation toward the weight. Nothing happened. "Don't force it," Tomas advised gently. "The power is not in your muscles, but in your mind. Imagine connections between your hands and the object." Sophia tried again, this time visualizing invisible threads extending from her fingertips to the weight. The tingling became a steady hum. The weight wobbled slightly, then rose an inch off the rack before clattering back down. Sophia gasped, both from surprise and sudden exhaustion. "That was harder than the beam." "Because you're trying to be precise," Dr. Chen explained. "At the hotel, your abilities responded to danger with maximum force. Here, you're learning finesse. It's like the difference between screaming and whispering. Both use your voice, but one requires more control." By evening, Sophia was mentally and physically drained. Mrs. Wellington showed her to a comfortable bedroom in the main house, where her few belongings had already been brought up. "Rest tonight," Mrs. Wellington said. "Tomorrow we'll discuss your options. No one will force you to stay, but we hope you'll consider it." Left alone, Sophia sat on the window seat, looking out at the now dark gardens. The day's events played through her mind like scenes from someone else's life. The bus ride, the mansion, people moving objects with their minds as casually as she might pick up a pencil. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was Diego holding a tray with a sandwich and tea. "Thought you might be hungry," he said. "First day can be overwhelming." Sophia thanked him and took the tray.
How did you end up here?
Diego leaned against the doorframe. "School talent show. Was supposed to do a magic act, but got nervous and accidentally levitated in front of 300 people. Next day, Mrs. Wellington showed up at my house." "Sound familiar?" Sophia nodded. "Did you have any warning? Any signs before it happened?" "Vertigo since I was a kid. Always thought I just had inner ear problems." He smiled ruefully. "Turns out my body was trying to lift itself up all along." "And your family? Do they know where you are?" "They think I'm at a special school for gifted students," which is true in a way. Diego's expression grew serious. "It's not easy leaving your life behind, but it helps to be around people who understand." After he left, Sophia unpacked her few belongings. She placed the photo of her grandmother on the nightstand, studying the family resemblance she'd never noticed before. The same eyes, the same determined set of the jaw. Had Rosa Martinez felt this same mixture of fear and wonder? Had she chosen to hide her abilities to live a normal life? Or had she simply never had the opportunity to understand what she could do? Sophia opened her sketchbook and began to draw. Art had always been her way of processing the world, of making sense of things that defied explanation. She sketched the mansion, the training room, Diego levitating. Her pencil moved quickly, capturing impressions rather than details. On the final page, she drew herself, not as she was, but as she might become. Standing tall, hands extended, fully in control of the power that flowed through her. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more challenges. But for the first time since the hotel incident, Sophia felt something like hope. Whatever this power was, whatever it meant, she was no longer facing it alone. 3 months passed quickly at the Wellington estate. Winter turned to spring, and Sophia's days fell into a rhythm. Morning training sessions to develop her control, afternoons studying the science behind her abilities, evenings socializing with the other residents who had become something like family. Her power had grown. What had once been just tingling in her fingers was now a force she could summon at will, directing it with increasing precision. She could lift objects as heavy as a car, though doing so still drained her. More impressively, she could now manipulate multiple smaller objects simultaneously, a skill that made her popular during game nights when she could deal cards to everyone without touching the deck. On this particular morning, Sophia sat cross-legged in the garden, practicing her finest control. Surrounding her were dozens of small pebbles, each hovering exactly 6 inches off the ground. Dr. Chen stood nearby with a stopwatch. 10 minutes, he announced. A new record. Sophia lowered the pebbles gently to the ground and stretched her arms. It's getting easier, less like lifting weights and more like breathing. That's exactly right, Dr. Chen said, making notes on his tablet. The neural pathways are becoming established. Your brain is adapting to use these abilities as naturally as any other function. Sophia stood, brushing grass from her jeans. In the distance, she could see Diego working with Lucia on a complex exercise involving passing objects between their fields of influence. Other residents were scattered across the grounds, each practicing in their own way. I never thought I'd say this, Sophia said, but it almost feels normal now. Dr. Chen smiled. That's the goal. These abilities are part of who you are, no different from your artistic talent or your kindness. Just another aspect of Sophia Martinez. They walked back toward the main house together. Spring flowers bloomed everywhere, tended by one of the residents whose ability allowed her to accelerate plant growth. The estate felt peaceful, protected from the outside world and its complications, but the outside world hadn't forgotten about Sophia. In the main hall, Mrs. Wellington was waiting with a serious expression. Sophia, we need to talk. There's been a development. She led Sophia and Dr. Chen to her office, where a news report played on a large screen. The sound was muted, but the images were clear enough. The city skyline, emergency vehicles, buildings with significant damage. Mrs. Wellington turned up the volume. What experts are calling the most significant earthquake to hit the region in over a century. While the epicenter was offshore, resulting in minimal tsunami activity. The city's aging infrastructure has suffered extensive damage. Rescue efforts continue in the downtown area, where several buildings have partially collapsed. The camera showed a familiar street, the one where Bella Nota Bistro was located. This happened this morning, Mrs. Wellington explained. Magnitude 6.8. The city wasn't prepared for a quake this size. Sophia stared at the screen, her heart racing. Mr. Rossi? The bistro? We don't have specific information yet, Dr. Chen said gently. Communications are strained, but we're trying to reach your former colleagues. Sophia sank into a chair, watching the ongoing footage of rescue workers digging through rubble, of frightened people huddled in emergency shelters. I should be there, she said quietly. Mrs. Wellington and Dr. Chen exchanged glances. Sophia, Mrs. Wellington began carefully. I understand your concern for your friends, but revealing yourself now would be extremely risky. The world has just begun to forget the Hamilton Hotel miracle. If you suddenly appear using your abilities in public again— I know, Sophia interrupted. I'd be exposing myself. And this place. And everyone here. Not just that, Dr. Chen added. You've made remarkable progress, but using your abilities in a crisis situation, with unstable buildings and trapped victims, the precision required would be immense. One mistake could cost lives rather than save them. Sophia stood and walked to the window, looking out at the peaceful grounds of the estate. She thought of her small apartment in the city, of Mr. Rossi and his family, of Ray and the other servers she'd worked with, people who had been kind to her, people who might need help right now. When I first came here, she said slowly, you told me I had a choice, that no one would force me to stay or go. Is that still true? Mrs. Wellington sighed. Of course it's true, Sophia, you're not a prisoner, but we have a responsibility to protect you and all the others here. And I have a responsibility too, Sophia replied, turning back to face them. These abilities, this gift, what's the point of having it if I don't use it when people need help? Dr. Chen stepped forward. If you're determined to go, at least let us help you. We can provide support, equipment, a team. No, Sophia shook her head. A team would attract too much attention. It needs to be just me. Quick, focused help where it's needed most, then I disappear again. Mrs. Wellington studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Your grandmother would be proud. She made the same choice, you know. After the incident with the tractor, there was a flood in her village. Witnesses say she diverted water away from homes for hours. She could have left, come to us, my father reached out to her. But she chose to stay and protect her community. Sophia hadn't known this part of her grandmother's story. It strengthened her resolve. I need to go now, today. Then at least take this. Dr. Chen handed her a small device that looked like a wristwatch. It's a biomonitor. It will track your energy output and warn you if you're approaching dangerous levels of exertion. And it has a panic button. Press it twice and we'll come, no questions asked. Within the hour, Sophia was in a helicopter belonging to the Wellington Foundation, flying toward the city. She'd changed into practical clothes, sturdy boots, flexible pants with many pockets, a lightweight jacket. Her hair was pulled back, and she wore dark sunglasses that might help conceal her identity. From the air, the damage looked worse than on the news reports. Entire blocks were without power. Water mains had burst, flooding streets. Several older buildings had partially collapsed, while many others showed significant structural damage. The pilot spoke over the headset. We'll drop you at the edge of the downtown area. Emergency services are concentrated near the hospital and City Hall. The older neighborhood with the restaurants and shops has received less attention so far. Sophia nodded. That's where she would start. The area she knew best, where Mr. Rossi and the others were likely to be. As they approached the landing zone, Sophia felt the familiar energy building in her body. But now, after months of training, it was a controlled force ready to be directed with purpose. The helicopter touched down in a park at the edge of the affected area. Remember, the pilot said as Sophia prepared to jump out, 48 hours maximum. Then we extract you no matter what, Mrs. Wellington's orders. Sophia gave a thumbs up and jumped down. As the helicopter lifted away, she pulled her jacket hood up and began jogging toward the bistro district, weaving through streets clogged with debris and abandoned vehicles. The closer she got to Bella Nota, the worse the damage became. This area, with its older brick buildings and narrow streets, had been hit particularly hard. Sophia passed groups of dazed-looking people, some digging through rubble with their bare hands, others simply staring at the remains of their businesses or homes. When she reached the block where the bistro stood, her heart sank. The entire row of storefronts had suffered severe damage. The bistro's familiar green awning hung in tatters, and part of the second floor had collapsed onto the dining area. A crowd had gathered around the building. As Sophia approached, she recognized some of the kitchen staff and regular customers. And there was Mr. Rossi, his face streaked with dust and tears, shouting and pointing at the rubble. "My wife is still in there. She was in the office when it happened. Please, someone help." Two firefighters were explaining that they needed to wait for structural engineers, that the building could collapse completely at any moment. Sophia didn't hesitate. She pushed through the crowd until she reached Mr. Rossi. "Sophia," he said in disbelief, "what are you doing here?" "I came to help," she said simply, then turned to the firefighters. "Where exactly is the office?" "Back of the building, through the kitchen," one replied automatically, then added, "But nobody's going in there, miss. It's not stable." Sophia looked up at the damaged building, analyzing it with the knowledge she'd gained over the past months. The main support beams had shifted, putting pressure on the already damaged walls. One wrong move could bring it all down. But she could see the path, feel the forces at work, and she knew she could hold it. "I'm going in," she said, and before anyone could stop her, she was through the broken front window and inside the familiar restaurant, now unrecognizable under dust and debris. She moved quickly through the dining area toward the kitchen, using her abilities to shift fallen beams out of her path. The entire structure groaned around her. In the kitchen, a gas pipe had ruptured, filling the air with its distinctive smell. Sophia immediately used her power to pinch the line closed, preventing a potential explosion. The door to the office was blocked by a fallen refrigerator. Sophia lifted it with her mind and set it aside. "Mrs. Rossi?" she called.
"Can you hear me?"
A weak voice answered from inside. Sophia pushed open the damaged door to find Mr. Rossi's wife on the floor, trapped beneath a fallen bookcase. Her leg was clearly broken, but she was conscious. "Sophia, how did you move that refrigerator?" Mrs. Rossi asked in confusion. "I'll explain later," Sophia promised. "Right now, we need to get you out of here." She gently lifted the bookcase and set it aside, then created a sort of invisible stretcher with her power, lifting Mrs. Rossi and supporting her injured leg. "This will feel strange," Sophia warned, "but try not to move." As they made their way back through the kitchen and dining room, the building shifted ominously. Plaster rained down from the ceiling and a support beam buckled. Without breaking stride, Sophia extended her power upward, holding the beam in place while continuing to carry Mrs. Rossi. The effort was immense. Dividing her focus between multiple tasks strained her abilities to their limit. The biomonitor on her wrist beeped a warning. Sophia ignored it, concentrating only on getting Mrs. Rossi to safety. They emerged from the broken window to cheers from the gathered crowd. Sophia gently lowered Mrs. Rossi onto a waiting stretcher, then turned to prevent the building from collapsing onto the street. With a massive effort, she stabilized the structure, reinforcing key support points until the immediate danger passed. Only then did she allow herself to breathe. Mr. Rossi was staring at her in awe. "It was you," he said, "at the Hamilton Hotel. That was real." Sophia nodded, too exhausted to speak. For the next 2 days, Sophia worked tirelessly throughout the damaged neighborhood. She lifted debris to free trapped survivors. She stabilized buildings until they could be properly secured. She diverted water from broken mains to prevent further flooding. She worked mostly at night, trying to avoid cameras and attention, but it was impossible to remain completely anonymous. By the second day, social media was buzzing with sightings of the Hamilton Hotel Angel helping earthquake victims. As her 48 hours drew to a close, Sophia stood on a rooftop overlooking the city. Emergency services had the situation under control now. The immediate crisis had passed. Her wristband vibrated, the signal that the helicopter was approaching for extraction. She had a choice to make: return to the Wellington estate to safety and secrecy and further training, or stay in the city, using her abilities openly, facing whatever consequences might come. The helicopter appeared on the horizon. Sophia touched the photo of her grandmother that she kept in her pocket. Rosa Martinez had chosen to stay in her community, to use her gift quietly when needed. But the world was different now. Nothing stayed hidden for long. Sophia made her decision. Her path had always been leading to this moment. Whatever came next, she would face it without hiding. The waitress who had once blended into the background would now step into the light. The helicopter landed. Sophia stepped forward, ready to begin the next chapter of her extraordinary life.